Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, folks. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Marketing Your Practice podcast, the podcast where I have the pleasure of simplifying the marketing and the mindset so you, the chiropractor, can increase your income, your impact, and your enjoyment in practice too. In today's episode, we're going to dive into and explore the biggest mistakes that I see chiropractors making with their marketing each week, both inside a community influencer, on Instagram, Facebook, via email. I'm chatting with chiropractors, and there are a number of themes that run through that are getting in the way of them getting the results they should be with their marketing. In today's episode, we're going to explore each of those with some actionable tips in case this sounds like you and you want to know where to move forwards. Okay, so today's episode is going to be full of immense value. So here's the first one. Let's just start with this. Is that too many of you just aren't marketing? So it amazes me how many, when I'm getting into a conversation about marketing, is that you're just not doing anything. Now, this comes from, there are many reasons why this comes about, but there's often an assumption in there that your skills should speak for yourself. They believe that if they're good at what they do, then patients should naturally come to them through referrals or word of mouth. Now, we should be getting internal referrals. Internal referrals are a reflection that you are doing a good job. But this is a very romantic notion that we see in movies. It's the old build it and they will come. But it's also, it goes back a little bit further than that too, because sometimes through different avenues, there's this idea in that, if businesses are good, then, it's almost sleazy or pushy to be marketing as well. So this idea is completely false. We want to look at brands like Apple, for instance, which is one of the most loved and adored companies going around, and they market the shit out of themselves. There's no doubt about that. They spend billions of dollars on marketing, and they're one of the largest spenders on marketing of any company in the world. And there is absolutely a relationship between why they are the most valuable company in the world and the amount of marketing they do. You only need to kind of drive in around any city streets, CBD, and you'll see marketing billboards for Apple everywhere. I see their advertisements all across YouTube and Facebook and Instagram. And so there is a relationship between marketing and business growth, okay? It's not an either or scenario where we're either about internal referrals or about external marketing. And I'm going to continue to say that. It'll be written on my gravestone, because somehow as chiropractors, what we've done is we've put ourselves into one or two of those silos. Either we're all about internal marketing or all about external marketing. And good businesses know that we want to be doing both of those as well. So this means for those of you that aren't marketing, just start with small, manageable marketing tasks. This could be just something as simple as setting up your Google business profile, okay? Starting to get some reviews. It might be getting your Instagram page up and going. It could be looking at your website. Maybe it's offering a free workshop or, starting to build some community relationships. It doesn't have to be an Instagram, a TikTok account, doesn't have to be making videos. There are several different avenues that we can be taking. The issue is we just need to start with one of them. Now, the second mistake that I see chiropractors making is they just don't have a budget for their marketing. And many chiropractors view marketing as an expense rather than an investment. Okay, so good marketing returns money. It is an investment. That's the definition of investment. Now, this mindset stems from past experience, maybe where they didn't see immediate returns, or maybe they invested money into it and they got no return at all. And so for that reason, they saw marketing as an expense. Now, operating without a marketing budget is a bit like driving without a GPS. Okay, you've got no idea in terms of where you're going. You don't know where to spend your money. And without a budget, it's also easy to make impulse decisions, right? We don't want to go shopping when we're hungry because we end up buying everything. We don't want to set up our marketing without a marketing budget. So Amazon, who in the very early days, again, another one of the world's largest companies, they spend billions of dollars on their marketing. They understood in the early days that if they were going to be successful, they needed to have a marketing budget. I was chatting with a good friend of mine, Tony Ebel, who whatever company he starts, whether it be his chiropractic practice, whether it be the other coaching business that he does, he says he's very cautious about where he spends money, but there's two spots where he will spend money in advance, even before he doesn't have it. And that is on marketing and on team, because he understands the investment that comes from this. Now, when you're in the early days in your practice, there's a couple of things to think about. I like to suggest that we have a marketing budget that's based on percentage of our revenue. Okay. So I suggest at the bottom end it being somewhere in around 7% and the top end somewhere in around 13%. So this works whether you're brand new in practice or whether you're a seasoned practice because it's a percentage of revenue. Now, the other thing to think about too, particularly when you're new in practice, is that we're going to pay with our marketing in one of two ways. We're either going to pay with our time or our money. Now, in the early days, we have lots of time in our practice because we're not busy and we don't have a lot of money. Now, as we go on and we become more settled in our practice businesses there as well, then we're able to start to pay with our money rather than our time. So not all marketing costs. Remember, marketing is basically a game of building relationships. So it costs you no money whatsoever to meet the people in your area. Get on Facebook, on Instagram, stalk local businesses, find businesses where you're aligned in values and maybe the people you look after and meet these people, okay? So your actionable tip here is start by allocating a specific percentage of your revenue on marketing. Now, maybe that's at 7% of your new in practice. Again, if there's a stronger foundation, perhaps it's up towards that 13%. And if you don't have a lot of money to be putting in, then what you're doing is you're allocating time every week to building relationships. Now, mistake number 3 that chiropractors are making with their marketing is they're inconsistent or they're sporadic with their marketing, okay? So some chiropractors think that sporadic marketing efforts are better than none. Now, this is often driven by unrealistic expectations. It's driven by a sense of urgency, okay? Now, this urgency arises because they didn't prioritize marketing from the get-go. Now, ironically, this urgency mirrors the quick fix mentality that many of us are criticizing our practice members about. We're frustrated because people have come to us with decades of problems and yet they want a fix within the next week or month. Many of you are doing this to me and you're telling me that you're wellness practitioners, but we have this outside-in approach that we're wanting to have with our marketing and it just doesn't make sense and it doesn't work as well. Inconsistency in your marketing is a leaky bucket. You might be putting effort in, but you're going to lose impact along the way. Inconsistent messaging and branding, posting schedules, all these things remove power from your marketing. They remove effectiveness and efficiency as well. You need to understand, and when I'm pointing this out to people, marketing takes time, okay? Unfortunately, that's one of those truths. Google's 0 moment of truth research found that it took, on average, this is to get somebody to feeling confident to making a buying decision, particularly when they're looking online, it took 7 hours of interaction, 11 different touch points over 4 locations. Now, most of you, particularly if it's digital marketing you're looking at, you don't have 7 hours of content that I consume. I could read every word on your website. I could watch every video or every post that you put up and there's not 7 hours there. It's best to happen over time, 11 different interactions. Those 4 locations might be your website. Maybe I'll get on your email list. Maybe it's Instagram and Facebook or YouTube. Where can I find 4 locations that I can see? One of those locations might be in around your community. Are you showing up at community events? Are you, speaking at local kind of wellness fairs? Can I see at the school fete? The more different locations that I can see, the more likely I am to build a relationship with you as well. You cannot speed up relationship building any more than you can speed up pregnancy. These things just take time. And when you try to take a shortcut with it, it's why you're not getting results. Whatever you need to do, if things are so horrible for you financially that you need to get a second job, then go and get a second job, okay? Find money from elsewhere, borrow it, do whatever you need to do there. But when you try and shortcut this and you show up as pushy and needy with this sense of urgency, it's going to harm your brand. Consistency is what builds a practice as well, okay? So create a calendar that allows multiple touch points across different platforms. Aim for that mix that's going to help you reach that 7, 11, 4 numbers over time, okay? So remember, multiple different spots that you're showing up with as well. Now, mistake number 4 is that chiropractors haven't put the time into developing their unique selling proposition. Now, this is one of those marketing cliches, those marketing words that sometimes we kind of just turn away from. One, maybe because it seems a bit kind of sleazy and yucky, or it seems confusing. And many chiropractors that I speak to when I start to have a conversation in around this have difficulty identifying their unique selling proposition because they feel like they're pretty much the same as everybody else. Like, How am I different from the person down the road? And they often think that this is just, marketing jargon, and I can kind of get away from it. Now, I'll tell you why this is a mistake. When it comes to marketing, different is more powerful than better. We often want to show that we're better than the other people, but different is one of those things that helps you to stand out even more. So you have to be telling your community in terms of how you are different. So, real world examples. FedEx, a number of years ago, decades ago, talked about their USP being when it absolutely, positively has to be there overnight. This set them aside from an overcrowded market, and it came to them being positioned. They were the urgent shipment people. What chiropractor are you? So, you could be, for instance, the family chiropractor who specializes in pediatric and maternal care. You could be the sports chiropractor for athletes of all different levels. Now, when it comes to being different, this is not about you trying to be different from every chiropractor. The key here is, how are you different from the other chiropractors in your town? That's the thing to think about as well. So the actionable tip here is to sit down and list out what sets you apart. Now, one of the things I like to encourage people to do here is talk to your practice members, those that are referring other practice members into you as well. Ask them why. Why do you continue to come here? What do you tell your friends about us if you're explaining them about chiropractic? That'll give you a whole bunch of things that might help you open the doors of what is it that's unique about you as well, okay? Now, again, differentiating is important. Otherwise, it's a bit like going to a party, and when you're introducing yourself in terms of what you do or who you are, it's just calling yourself an earthling. You're way more than that, okay? As a chiropractor, there's areas of expertise and specialty that you have that differentiates you from the other chiropractors in your town, okay? Dive deep into that, communicate that out to your peeps as well, okay? Now, this moves on to this next point through here, mistake number 5, is they don't know their market, or they're trying to kind of market to everybody. Now, they often think that by casting a wide net with their message that they'll attract a wider audience. Now, this belief is fueled in the idea that more is better. Now, it makes sense that the more people I can yell to, the better result that I will get there as well. Now, here's the problem with this. Now, we see big companies do this. We talked about Apple before. We've seen Nike do it. Big brands look like they're talking to everybody. They're actually not talking to everybody, but they're able to cast a wider net for 2 reasons. One, they have a team of thousands of people doing this. And second, they have a budget of millions and often billions of dollars behind them. Now, we don't do this. As chiropractors and small businesses, when we cast our net out, when we try to stretch it really, really wide to encompass everybody in our community, that fishing net, little holes that are in a fishing net, ends up stretching so wide that the fish can escape directly through it. When you try to talk with everybody, you end up talking to nobody. We want to show up in marketing when somebody's, whether it be online or offline, when people are reading and engaging with your business, there's a silent question they're asking themselves, which is this relevant to me? Are you talking to me? I love this idea also that came from Wyatt Woodsmall. Now, he has this idea that when you can articulate the problem so clearly, you automatically and subconsciously get credited with knowing the solution. Okay, he says it a bit cooler than that, but that's in essence. So what we want to do here is, when we're talking to a group of people, we want to be really good at articulating what is their problem. Okay, families, maternal, office workers, athletes, these all have different problems. Okay, you want to be really good at articulating their problems, and if you can do it even better than they can, they will credit you with knowing the solution as well. So what you want to be doing here, and again, actually, before I move on to some actionable tips there too, is that this should link hand in glove with your USP that we just talked about with mistake beforehand. If our USP is all about caring for kind of, families, pregnancy and kids, then that's who we want to be marketing to. So the actionable tip is, review your marketing materials. Look at your website, your social media, your brochures. Ask yourself, who am I speaking to? And if the answer is everyone, it's time to get more focused. Link that back in with your USP and start talking to one person in particular. The 6th mistake that I see practitioners making all the time is they only have one channel they market to. Now, this happens for several different reasons. One, we start, for instance, maybe it's Facebook or Instagram. We get some really great results with, so we just head down that pathway. Maybe it's confusion and overwhelm. Okay, so we feel like we don't know what to do, so we kind of pick one and we end up going for one that's easiest for us. But there's a problem with this. When we put all our eggs in one basket, it becomes really risky because if that channel stops working, and ultimately everything will, no marketing channel works forever, we're kind of really left scrambling. I love the computer analogy in this. As our computers have become more sophisticated, they have redundancy built into them, which means if one little thing stops working, the whole thing doesn't stop. So our marketing, we want to have internal referrals. We're talking about community events we want partnerships. We want online things that we're doing. And the more of these channels that we have, the more stable, the more recession proof, the more pandemic proof that our practices is. Okay. So good businesses have multiple avenues through which they attract business as well. So your actionable tip here is start to explore other marketing channels that align with your audience. Who is it that you defined before with your USP there as well, and your target market? Again, this could include SEO, community events, partnerships, local businesses, Facebook ads, Instagram ads, all these things. Just pick one to begin with, okay? Get some results there and then start to move out as well, okay? So relying on one marketing channel is like trying to fish in a pond where everybody else is fishing. You might eventually catch some fish, but it's not the best way to do it. In fact, my advice to people is to zag when other people are zigging. If you see everybody in your community that's all working online, get offline, start to head some, do some letterbox drops again, do things differently from what everybody else is doing. Mistake number 7 is that you're not adding value, okay? We're stuck in an old paradigm of what's often referred to as interruption marketing as well, okay? Where we focus solely on our service. Now, interruption marketing is what marketing used to be when we think of old television marketing. So for those of us that remember television in the old days or when we used to go along to the cinema, we still see a lot of interruption marketing. I was having a look through a Cosmo magazine recently, and at the start of it, there's like 15 or 20 pages. It's amazing how many pages at the beginning of the magazine that are all advertisements for, Louis Vuitton and perfumes and lipsticks and makeups. It takes, as I mentioned, 20 pages before you can get into the magazine. This is known as interruption marketing. When I'm watching television and every 15 or 20 minutes, adverts come on. When I go along to the cinema and before I can watch my movie, there's advertisements there. This is an interruption. Now, in today's competitive market, simply talking about your service and interrupting people is not enough. Marketing has evolved from interruption in towards entertainment and value-added experiences. So whilst we might not have the budget of Apple or Red Bull or GoPro, we can still do these sorts of advertisements that are entertaining, that add value as well. I mean, I love the ads that Apple make. I love the ads that Red Bull make. I love the ads that I see that GoPro. I find myself often in stores just watching their advertisements as well. But our angle into doing that type of thing through there is education and problem solving. Okay, so let's go back to who our audience is and our USP. What are the problems that these people have that I can solve? And how do I go online or out to my community and solve them for them? This also is evoking some of the laws of influence like reciprocity. When we're generous and we solve problems in advance, there too, people want to repay us. And they repay us by sending people to us. They repay us by coming in to see us, okay? So look at your marketing. Is it all about just that discount? Hey, listen, half price initial consultation and we'll throw in a pillow. That's interruption marketing. There's a place for it. You absolutely should be doing it. But if that's the only thing that you're doing, you're going to really suffer with your marketing. You want to make sure that you're adding value and solving problems as well. So think about it. What are the problems? Actionable tip here. What are the problems that your community faces and how can you solve them? Then what you need to do is go about creating value-added content in around those. Blogs, how-to videos, or even interactive seminars, workshops, all those things as well, okay? Now, on to our final mistake that we're going to tell you, number 8 here, is that they're not measuring and tracking the results as well. So we get something that's working, okay, and inside of this, we just kind of see the practices getting a little busier, but we're not actually looking at the numbers. There are some numbers that we need to know here, and many chiropractors don't like looking at numbers. Several reasons. We could do a whole episode on that. Remember, my thought in around numbers is there's data, not drama. Okay. If our practice is growing, we're just looking at the numbers. If our practice is dropping down, we look at the numbers. There's no drama around it. It's just data. And then we start to make decisions in around that. But we need to know a couple of numbers, particularly when we're looking at marketing. One of the things that you want to know is, what is my case value? On average, when somebody comes to see you, how many visits do they come and see you? And what's the return for that? So we knew, for instance, at our practice at Port Melbourne, that our case average there was a little over $2,500. Okay. Now, this meant with confidence. At the time, we had a crew who were doing some screenings at local events there, and they would pre-qualify patients and they would send them into us, and it would cost me at memory there about $100 for that person to come in. I would actually pay the screening crew to do that. Now, I knew that from those patients, 1 in 3 of those would convert into really good patients. So that means, in essence, I was paying $300 to get $2,500 back. Now, I had to be able to know that I wasn't going to get that $2,500 back immediately. It was going to come over time, but I knew my numbers and I knew I could sustain that. And if I didn't know my numbers, I'd be forgiven to be thinking, man, that was $300 that I spent before I got a patient. That sounds like a lot of money. And I see a lot of you out there that have literal gold mines in your marketing but you don't see it because you don't know your numbers. You know, for me, this was like me going along to some kind of vending machine, putting $300 in, and I was going to get $2,500 back over the next 12 to 18 months. Now, I'll do that day in and day out. That's a wonderful investment. But we need to know our numbers. It's a bit like, starting a weight loss program, you're exercising, you're eating beautiful foods from nature, but you never stand on the scales. Now, there are other ways we would know we're losing weight, and there are other ways to know if your practice is growing, but we need to know our numbers. Now, we also need to know them to find out when things aren't working. So many people, I was chatting to a chiropractor recently who's spending, I think it was $1,200 a month on his SEO. I'm like, what results is that getting? He couldn't tell me, didn't know at all in terms of how would we know it's working? That's a question you might want to be asking your marketing team. How would we know this is working? And so, this was in excess of $12,000 a year that he was spending without any understanding of what success looks like. And this is what has us down the track. Get into this idea of urgency, and then everything mucks up. So you do need to know some numbers. And perhaps the most important number for you to know from a marketing point of view is, what is my case average? What is a good quality patient worth to me? How many of these leads do I need to come in? What am I paying for them? Okay, so there's some good things to be kind of looking at as well. So start simple. Maybe it's just a Google spreadsheet or something that you're looking at. Track your numbers, find out what it is that your case average is, and this will allow you to better know what you can be spending your money on as well. Now, these are 8 of the major mistakes that I see chiropractors making with their marketing. And maybe as you're listening to this, maybe there's 1 or 2, maybe it's all 8 of them that you're making as well. But just start to methodically work your way through this. The first one is, are you actually marketing? Are you in the game? Okay, we can't be expecting to be getting results if we're staying up in the stands. Start little, okay? This might be a multiple listen through episode that you need to have a pen and paper rather than just out walking with dog or driving here as well. This is a roadmap for you that will help you increase the impact that you're having in your community, the income that you're bringing in, and ultimately enjoyment that you have in practice. Reverse engineer through all of these, take those action steps and start to implement from this as well. All right, folks, that's it for this episode. Until next week, thank you for all that you do. Your community needs you to stop making these damn mistakes so that you can change more lives. Folks, see you back here next week. Bye. If you've enjoyed listening to this podcast, you have to come and check out my Community Influencer Program. It's my monthly coaching program where we take all this material and I'll work with you to help you apply it, implement it, and systemize it. The Community Influencer Group Coaching Program is designed to help you increase your practice income, impact, and enjoyment. Join me over at anguspyke.com/join. That's anguspyke.com/join. I'd love to see you there.